Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fortifying Your Faith. I'm your host, Haston Hanley, and I'm so glad that you can be with us this morning as we are sitting down and discussing and continuing on with our series of needing to grow and different areas where we ourselves can focus on, where we can draw ever closer to God. And so this week, as we are continuing on looking through the different examples that are given through 2 Peter chapter 1, this week we are going to look at temperance, or easier for us to put it and remember it, self-control. And that is a topic, that is a theme, and a characteristic that I think most of us as Christians recognize that we need it. We recognize that self-control is valuable and vital to our life as a Christian, but if we don't implement it, if we don't try and actually control our desires, our wants, our following after what feels good, then we are going to fall down a slippery slope of temptation. We're going to fall ever closer to falling away from God. And not only that, but we also begin to start showing characteristics and these ideas and thought processes of, well, I can just go do whatever I want. If we stray away from self-control, what's going to be the next step but losing control? But in that, I also want us to say that when we become a Christian, just like with all of these different topics, we're looking at it in the understanding of we have to grow in these things. You know, not everyone is going to become a Christian and pop out of the baptistry and be the most self-controlled, the most patient, the most godly person that there is. You have to grow into those things. But let's take a minute and look at a few reasons why we might need self-control. And like we said, it's very, obviously you need self-control, right? But that's not necessarily the case. Because some people think and have believed that you can go and do, say, think, act however you want, and it doesn't matter in the eyes of God. I want us to look at two instances. First of all, 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8, a passage that no doubt many of us will know and remember and think about, but Peter is warning these Christians, be sober, be vigilant. That is meaning having your senses about you, being cognitive and having all of your cognitive abilities ready, and be vigilant, be watchful, and ever ready for this, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walks about seeking whom he may devour. You see, there has to be that need of self-control. If we don't have our senses about us, we can't really control what we're going to do. If we are not trying to control ourselves and we're just giving in to what sounds good, what feels good, what we perceive in that moment as good, we can stray further and further from the truth. And that's a very sad fact. But let's look at another instance. This one people have taken out of context a lot throughout the years, but I want us to spend a moment in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, because verse 13 is often used in a very personal sense. But we're going to back up to verse 11 and look at the full context, so that way we're able to internalize it easier. Now, all these things happened unto them, those being of the Old Testament, for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore, let him that thinketh he stand take heed lest he fall. Now, it should be interesting or important to add here, take heed that he stands alone, or as one who had never encountered something before, one who has no help around him. Don't think that you are an island upon or of yourself because you're not going to have that help and that hope. But verse 13, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. Many times, people use verse 13 and say, see, God only tempts us with what we can stand. Well, if that were the case, then there would not be a single person who ever fell away from God because they could not withstand that temptation. But rather, I want us to think about it this way. The temptation that we face is common to mankind. We are not facing anything that no one before us or after us have or will ever be tempted by. That's the thing is, there's nothing new under the sun, just new methods of temptation. There is no temptation that we cannot overcome. But God has given us a way of escape. And many times that way of escape directly relates back to the fact that we have to have self-control. Peer pressure. Well, come on. You can join us and you can sit down with us and you can just be like one of us. Well, if you have self-control, no. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be around it. Well, it wouldn't hurt to go and tell this lie or that lie, but self-control tells us that even though we can, we shouldn't and we won't. When we stop and look at the need for self-control, it is a need as old as time. It is a need dating back to Adam and Eve in the garden. They were deceived, and they changed their mindset or their viewpoint of self-control. It goes to Cain and Abel. Cain had the control and had the ability to not go and murder his brother, but he lacked the self-control, and so he went out and did that. I want us to look at two examples. One positive, one negative when it comes to self-control. 1 Samuel chapter 11 is perhaps one of the biggest instances of lacking self-control. 2 Samuel chapter 11, beginning in verse 1, and it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab, and his servants with him, and all of Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon, and besieged Rabbah, but David tarried still at Jerusalem. And it came to pass in the evening tide, that David arose from off his bed, and walked upon the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and came in unto her, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. Now, self-control is David looking at this and realizing, I don't need to be where I am right now. Self-control would be David seeing Bathsheba turning around and going back inside. Self-control even would be when he hears that Bathsheba is Uriah the Hittite's wife, saying, wow, I certainly don't need any part of this. But self-control would have never let him get that far. We see this instance that's so commonly referenced. So obviously an example of what not to do. And yet, how often is it that we get ourselves in that same position or a similar position with sin because we never look at self-control? We never try and rein in what we want to do. We just let ourselves go and do whatever sounds fun, whatever sounds easy and enjoyable. Now, let's stop and spend a minute looking at Genesis 39. This is the good example. This is the example where if you could be someone like this, what an amazing thing it is. We look at Joseph and Potiphar's wife. I want us to drop down Genesis 39, beginning in verse 7. It came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master knows not what is with me in this house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There's no one greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept anything back from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Even as she was tempting him and trying to get him to sin, he kept saying no. It came to pass, verse 10, as she spoke with Joseph day by day, that is, that she did not give up. She was adamant and determined to tempt him, that he did not listen to her, he did not lie with her, nor to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, and said, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and got him out. When we are faced with sin, when we are faced with temptation, when we are face to face with something that we know is wrong, what do? Do we have the self-control that we are determined and we are going to do everything that we can to get out of that situation and show self-control? Or are we going to give in to that temptation? Are we going to give in to that, as the Hebrew writer puts it, that pleasure of sin that only lasts for a season? Are we going to show self-control? Or are we just going to go live however we want? Next week, Lord willing, we're going to sit down and discuss patience and spend time thinking about how we each can grow in patience. But until then, let's continue studying, continue growing, praying for one another, and encouraging one another, so that way we can all fortify our faith.